Welcome to the Red Roof Recovery Show. This is a program to soften the path of recovery from substance and behavioral addictions. I'm your host, Tanya MacIntyre. And this beautiful theme song that we're listening to, it's called Greatest Bravery. It's from the CD titled The Master Key, and it's by my friend, my mentor, a very talented singer, songwriter, musician by the name of Russell Alan Scott. I just love that tune. And I certainly encourage you to look up Russell Alan Scott and maybe even participate in one of his upcoming coming home retreats. I attended one of Russell's retreats near Orangeville, Ontario a few years ago. And it was at a place called the Ecology Retreat Center, and quite a magnificent place. Old growth forests, natural trails, babbling brooks. It's absolutely magnificent. And that experience was certainly life transformational for me. So I'm here with you today as your host of the Red Roof Recovery Show. And I'm here to talk about my own recovery from drugs and alcohol. And my epiphany kind of started when I was in Mallorca, Spain. My husband and I had an opportunity to live and work there for a while, so we thought it was a wonderful opportunity to go to the Mediterranean, start building our infrastructure of friends there, and semi-retire, so we could then enjoy our retirement in a nice climate on the Mediterranean. Who wouldn't want that, right? Yes. Well, not only did the epiphany for me happen on February of 2009 while I was in Mallorca, Spain, my substance use disorder, my addictions had been spiraling out of control by that time. So when I made the decision to go into a 30-day rehab program on the mainland of Spain, the only model of recovery that was available to me at that time was the 12-step program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And you will often hear me say that AA saved my life and SMART recovery gave me my life back. And this is what the program, Red Roof Recovery, is about. It's about SMART recovery because it literally gave me my life back. And SMART is an acronym for self-management and recovery training. And Red Roof Recovery is founded on the principles of SMART and also on the principles of something called Team CBT. Both of these programs are innovative, evidence-based programs that I've been using to abstain from my own addictions for several years, very successfully. Although, when I say that, I also am quick to say that this has not been a linear journey for me by any means, not by any stretch of the imagination. So I'm here to talk about my experience, strength, and hope with you, and hope that perhaps even one of you might be inspired to make the changes that you need in your life if you're challenged by any kind of substance or behavioral addiction, or you may be with a loved one who is suffering. And I'm also a facilitator not only with SMART Recovery, but SMART Family and Friends. They have a terrific program that's available through the smartrecovery.org website. So I encourage you to go there and do a couple of things. Please consider a donation because like all recovery meetings, we have had to transcend to the Zoom world. So we have no face-to-face meetings, and we used to pass the hat for your donations at the end of every meeting. Can't do that anymore because we are not able to have face-to-face meetings. So we're on Zoom and unable to collect donations. So while you're at smartrecovery.org, please consider clicking on that donate button. And even if you can donate the price of a cup of coffee, it goes a long way to keep the work of SMART going because we are a nonprofit organization and we really depend on proceeds from things like the handbook, which you can order while you're on the website. And lots of resources there. You can check out their meetings. They've got lots of online meetings all over the world. And then my meetings you can find at smartrecoverytoronto.com. So I'm facilitating a meeting there every week on Friday night, and you can get that Zoom link and you can check out the other meetings there. Because I'm always preaching, you will hear me say, keep looking until you find something that resonates for you, something that clicks for you. Just keep looking, right? So, I mean, it's like trying to find a good hairstylist, right? It's like a crapshoot. So you have to just keep trying. It's all trial and error. So keep listening, keep watching, keep reading, keep taking recommendations from friends. Referrals are always a great source of help. And as I said, I've been a facilitator now with SMART since 2018, and I'm holding regular meetings on Zoom now. Now, the founding office of SMART, this was one of my decisions when I was attending AA meetings, and I still do when they are available for face-to-face. I love AA. It's one of the best personal development programs on the planet. And I still am thankful that I was indoctrinated by the principles of AA, because they are fantastic to start you on that journey of directing rational analysis inward, right? That's where we don't want to go. That's why I numbed my feelings for many, many years with drugs and alcohol. Who wants to feel those feelings? Ew, no, it's a messy place to go. I don't want to go there. So it took me many, many years of denial, as we say in AA. Denial is more than a big river in Egypt, and I was swimming in that river for a long, long time. Now, the founding office of SMART, I'm going to try to stay on topic. I know I go all over the place. Shiny balls over there and over there, but I will try to stay on topic with you for the 30 minutes we're together. So I appreciate your patience. Thank you. Founding office of SMART is in Mentor, Ohio, which is what I started to say. And that is significant to me because mentorship has been crucial in my life and a critical factor in my recovery journey. Mentorship is, I talk often about the people who have made a significant difference in my life. People like my father. My father was a single dad in the 60s, dealing with his own addictions and issues. And he was a fabulous, tremendous human being who taught me by example. And of course, a single father, there was no book for parenthood, still isn't, I don't think. Well, perhaps now there is, I don't know. I'm not a parent. Never had the courage to do that job, the most important job in the world. But my dad, he was a philosopher in many ways. He read philosophy books, thank goodness, because over the years I grew to call him Philosopher Dad, right? Because he'd spew out a line of philosophy, hoping that it would solve all the problems of teenage angst. So I learned a lot from my dad, and I actually wrote a book in his honor called Philosopher Dad, Mindful Wisdom from My Philosopher Dad, Sage Advice from a Single Father. Some shameless promotion there. You can pick that up on Amazon.ca. The founding office of SMART, Mentor, Ohio, and that resonated with me, right? You keep looking until you find something. And I was searching for an alternative program to offer people in my community because after 9 years in AA, I was losing a lot of my friends. They were not returning from their relapses. They were overdosing or committing suicide. So obviously devastated by that experience, I sought out an alternative program, a more secular program that perhaps might be more inclusive for people to be more receptive to the ideas of self-management when it came to addiction recovery. So let me tell you a little bit, first of all, about SMART. SMART is an acronym. It's Self-Management and Recovery Training, and it's an evidence-based recovery program, and it's based on the techniques of cognitive behavioral therapy. And cognitive sounds like a difficult word, but it really isn't. Cognition is just thought. So when we talk about cognitive behavior therapy, we're talking about taking a deeper look at the thoughts that we're thinking and where they're coming from, and how we can intercept that inner dialogue, those thoughts, those negative thoughts that aren't serving us, and replace them with more positive, self-empowering thoughts that will serve our health and well-being. And then I started to tell you about Team CBT. So Red Roof Recovery is founded on the principles of SMART and also on Team CBT. So I'm a huge fan of Dr. David Burns. And Dr. Burns is a pioneer in cognitive behavior therapy. He started his journey studying CBT back in the 70s when he was a university professor at Stanford. And he's retired now, but he still has a huge following, and he has a best-selling book called Feeling Good. I encourage you to check out his website, feelinggood.com. So Dr. Burns has been a valuable mentor of mine for several years, and actually he was one of my last interviews when I was doing another show here on CKWR called The Good News Only, where you only hear good things to feel good. And Dr. Burns, it was that interview with Dr. Burns actually that started me on my mission right now to work in addiction recovery, because there is so much stigma attached to addiction recovery. And even when I started to promote my Smart Recovery meetings on social media, I was disheartened by the comments I was getting from people I considered my friends, people who I thought knew me really well, although I have hidden my addiction for a long, long time as well. So maybe they were surprised to learn that I was on an addiction recovery journey, but several of them said, "Are you sure you want to associate yourself with that?" And when I heard that, it was like I had a slap in the face. It was like, oh, ouch. These are intelligent, well-meaning people, but they still have that bias around addiction. And, when I say that bias, I'm talking about what we are presented on mainstream media about addiction. That, it's the homeless, hopeless guy sitting on a park bench drinking booze out of a paper bag. And you know what? The addiction recovery I know, yes, there are a lot of homeless people that are afflicted with addictions, but addiction is far-reaching. And I know a lot of people in high standing, if that's what you want to consider acceptable in looking at addiction recovery, people who are in executive positions in corporations who are hiding their addiction. I did it for over 20 years, and I managed by the skin of my teeth to hold on to what was deemed to be an acceptable profession of journalism. But I was with company, we used to spend almost every day wrapping things up at a bar and drinking until we were staggering home. And I've also lost count of the number of times back in those days where I had actually gotten behind the wheel of a car and drove with one hand over my eye so I could try to focus to get myself home. That's how bad it got for me, and that's how bad it is for a lot of people who are appearing to be functioning in, these esteemed positions that are deemed to be, a higher standard of vocations. But people are struggling. It doesn't matter where you are, whether you're, slinging fries at a fast food joint or overseeing the presidential chair of a country. It's there. Addiction is there all the time. So my passion now is to help remove the stigma around addiction and addiction recovery, because it's a growing epidemic. In fact, I think that is the real pandemic, is addictions in our country, at least in Canada. And, suicides now are tripling, and nobody seems to be addressing that issue of how addiction and isolation and trauma is affecting our society as a whole. So I'm here to do that. I'm here to open up the conversation about addiction and what that looks like. So Team CBT is the gift of Dr. David Burns, a pioneer in cognitive behavioral therapy. And again, it's an evidence-based program, clinically proven, and Team uses a more detailed format of techniques and tools to actually reprogram our core beliefs. You'll hear me talk about tips and tools for recovery that works from Smart Recovery on their YouTube channel. You can go into that playlist on Smart Recovery. They have tips and tools for recovery that works. And you can learn about some of the major techniques and tools that Smart Recovery uses. And one of the core principles in SMART is the idea of acceptance. Acceptance of not only yourself, but also your life and others in your life. So for instance, when I was so devastated when my friends were coming forth saying, "Oh, are you really sure you want to be associated with that?" That judgment was hard for me to accept. It was hard for me to think, oh my goodness, my friends actually think less of me because they now know that I'm recovering from addiction. So that didn't sit well with me for a long, long time. And I'm still, in many ways, I struggle with it because I'm still faced with it, even now. Here we are, I'm recording this show in May of 2021, and we're heading into year 2 of the global pandemic. And I am still having situations where people who should know better, and we talk about stop shoulding yourself, right? People should know better, and I'm guilty of saying that all the time, the judgment, right, and the assessments. But I'm often surprised when people who I think would know better say to me, "Oh, I'm not really sure how I feel about being associated with people in recovery." It's kind of that NIMBY principle, right? Talking about acronyms, NIMBY is not in my backyard. Oh yes, it's a great idea, as long as you don't set up next door to me. It's great, I'll support you. So I'm, trying not to be too critical when I'm talking about the biases that still exist around addiction in the year 2021. But we humans, we are our fellow fallible humans, we're evolving slowly. It's taking a long time. It's like a turtle climbing up the hill. Anyway, get back to acceptance here, Tanya. Stay focused. So the 3 excellent tools that I want you to look at about Smart Recovery when you go on the YouTube channel, do a search for Smart Recovery and then go to the playlists for tips and tools for recovery that works. And you will learn 3 excellent tools there. They are the USA, yes, Smart loves acronyms. The USA is unconditional self-acceptance. And I often say that self-love is one of the most difficult, challenging things I've had to do in my lifetime. And I was encouraged by Louise Hay, the founder of Hay House Radio. Bless her heart, she was one of my early mentors in recovery. Part of my homework in rehab, in fact, was to read her book, You Can Heal Your Life. And in that book, talk about having something resonate with you, she said that the most challenging thing she did in her lifetime was learning how to love herself, because we are inundated with messages telling us that we're no good, we're inferior, we are never good enough, never slim enough, never rich enough, never smart enough, never, ever enough, until we go out and buy something or take something to feel better. So that resonated with me. And she used to promote something called the mirror exercise, where you look in the mirror, deep in your eyes every morning or whenever you start your day, you put your hand on your heart and you say, "I love you and you're worth it." And it's a difficult exercise for people to do. And I've heard people say, "No, I can't look into my own eyes and say that." And it wasn't easy for me to do. I sobbed and cried for weeks trying to do it. But it has become part of my daily ritual now, and it makes me feel better. And I think definitely it's part of my motivation to abstain from my addictive behaviors. So that self-acceptance is key. And what I love about the Smart Recovery Tips and Tools for Recovery That Works videos on YouTube is that they are short. I think the longest video is 5 or 6 minutes, but they contain a lot of really great information, and they're short. So you get it all, and every time I go out and look at one, and I look, especially the unconditional other acceptance, that UOA, I watch that one at least once a week, because, I'm with the French philosopher Sartre on that. Hell is other people sometimes. So the unconditional other acceptance is one of my key tools that I use in my addiction recovery. So UOA, unconditional other acceptance, and then there's ULA, unconditional life acceptance. That's a great one. And the USA, unconditional self-acceptance. So I encourage you to start there, not get too overwhelmed with everything. They're just short and sweet videos that contain a lot of information for you. And they've definitely had a powerful impact on my own recovery. So I encourage you to do that as we come up to 20 minutes together. I really love that you are spending 30 minutes of your day with me to talk about addiction recovery and what my experience has been like. And right now, I would like to talk more about the psychology around addiction, because on the weekly meetings it often comes up, people want to know why. Why am I addicted? Why am I challenged? Why do I keep relapsing? And those are all really good questions to ask. But I think one of my colleagues and fellow facilitators at SMART He said it best. Thomas Horvath. Tom Horvath is his name. And he says, to understand your addiction, you need to understand your life. And how many of us really understand our life, right? That's what I love about Smart Recovery, helping me to direct rational analysis inward and giving me the tools that I need to do that. Things like the HOV, the hierarchy of values, promoting that inner inquiry of saying, what do I want? What am I doing about it? And how do I feel about what I'm doing about it? Really good, deep questions to ask and answer on a daily basis, because I don't know about you, but when I'm asking and answering those questions on a daily basis, the answers, more often than not, are different. So I want to talk to you about the two primary dogmas that are dominating the landscape of addiction. And I've been around addiction recovery now since 2009. So I think I know of what I speak when I talk about the two general models of addiction recovery that are available. We have the medical model, and that asserts that addiction is fundamentally a disease over which we have little control. So that's one of the primary principles of 12-step programs, is that we are powerless over our addictions. And then there's the choice model, and that asserts that addiction is a flaw of character and a moral failing. And that was something else I was challenged by, is accepting that maybe I do have a moral failing. Maybe my character is defective. I'm broken in some way. And then when it comes to actually helping people who are struggling with addictions, neither of those models seems to be working very well. And you'll often hear me talk about Dr. Gabor Mate. He's a Canadian physician, and he wrote a book called In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts. And he says there's a dominant link to addiction and trauma. I think specifically he says childhood trauma. And although I do agree with that, I don't think it necessarily has to be childhood trauma. I think it can be trauma at any time in your life. Because for me, the bullying didn't stop on the schoolyard. I was bullied in corporations for 20 years by various people. And that was traumatic in many ways. When you think that you've left the bullies on the schoolyard, nope, they grow into be bullying adults. So I don't think that trauma is necessarily associated primarily to childhood. Not for me, at least. I was traumatized not only in childhood, but several times throughout my adulthood as well. Yes, indeed. And just like most people, right? But Dr. Mate also says that it's nonsense to think that addiction has a genetic link. So that was another thing, right? Because I come from a long line of addictive people in my family tree fallen off the branches. But according to Dr. Mate, even if a child is found to have a predisposition to addiction, so for example, if your parent is challenged by substance use disorder, yes, we no longer call you an alcoholic, you are now challenged by substance use disorder, a SUD, yes. So, but that's actually that environmental conditions are going to have a greater influence over whether or not a person develops addictive behavior. So it's that whole nature-nurture kind of philosophy. And then there are lots of different experiences around addiction as we're coming up to the end of our time together. I'm just going to touch base on a couple of things because people talk a lot about happiness, right? So I often say I'm your perpetually positive pal. And people are kind of turned off by that sometimes because they say, well, you're kind of diminishing my unhappiness or, my depression or my anxiety. And it's never my intention to do that when I talk about how important it is to kind of interrupt that committee in the head, those voices that never shut up. I call it the committee in the head. It's the inner critic, the inner dialogue, whatever you have named that chatter, that monkey chatter in your head that just keeps telling you you're never good enough until you go out and buy something or take something to feel better. That is the chatter that keeps telling us we are defective. We're morally flawed if you can't be happy all the time. And I think our life is going to be happier if our day-to-day choices are based on our long-term goals and our ultimate values. And that's why I'm such a big fan of the Smart Recovery HOV, the hierarchy of values, because it encourages us to really take a look at what the core values are in our lives. Because I don't know about you, but I was not encouraged to define those things when I was growing up. In fact, if anything, I was discouraged to do it. If I even dared to express what I wanted, I was called selfish, and it was frowned upon. So, we've kind of developed that social construct that it doesn't matter what you want. You were born to serve. You just perform and produce and shut up and get on with life. Just do what you were supposed to do and forget all that, what do you want? Just live for others, serve others. That is your purpose in life. And I think that's where I, at least, was challenged a lot, because I think in a large part my background influenced me negatively to not have children, because when you're born to someone who should never have been a mother, and you appreciate that thankfully she wasn't a part of your life for too long to do too much damage, enough certainly, but if you escaped sooner than later, great. But it's the most important job on earth, parenting, and people take it lightly. I mean, geez, we have to pass a test to drive a car. I think we should be passing a test to be a parent. And it was just a job that I just never felt up to the task to do. But I think it takes a profound act of empathy to apply this whole idea that someone struggling with addiction, that even the most entrenched addiction is an attempt, however misguided, to reach the good. Instead of labeling those who struggle with addiction as victims of an uncontrollable disease or moral failure, what if instead we were to see them as confused about the things that will and will not lead to happiness? What if we saw them as struggling, as we all do in one respect or another, to put off short-term satisfaction in order to achieve long-term happiness? And another of the terrific tools from Smart Recovery is, okay, I'm trying to multitask here. That's why I'm struggling a little bit. So just hold on, be patient for a second. I'm just going to cue that up and move to Russell's beautiful track. And then we're going to play him as our extra theme, because I just love this tune, which is Greatest Bravery from Russell Allen Scott from his CD, The Master Key. So on the whole happiness thing, Smart Recovery has this cost-benefit analysis that we can use. And the cost-benefit analysis is where you sit down and you have 4 quadrants. In fact, you can get the template free from smartrecovery.org. You can get the HOV and the CBA while you're there. Download those templates and have a look at those. But the CBA encourages us to take a look at what are the benefits of, and it can be anything, not just addictions. It can be, my husband and I did one. What are the benefits, the cost and benefits of him retiring sooner than later? That's always a good one to do. But it forces you to look at the black and white reality of what the short-term benefits have been to affecting the long-term gains that we say we want. So it's a really good exercise to go through, and I encourage you to do that. So we only got a minute and a half left. Wowzer, it goes fast. Thank you so much for spending 30 minutes with me. I have a couple of books now. I'm just getting the second one, The Daily Wisdom from My Philosopher Dad. That is en route to me today, so I'll be promoting that shamelessly on future programs. Finally got a couple of these programs uploaded to YouTube. Yeah, I've got the Red Roof Recovery Show on YouTube now, so please look that up and subscribe. I need 100 subscribers before I can get my personalized URL, so please help me out with that. So a lot of the daily reflections in my Daily Wisdom book come from my philosopher dad, and the first book that I wrote in his honor was Mindful Wisdom from My Philosopher Dad, Sage Advice from a Single Father. So please look for that at amazon.ca. My wish for you is to always live fully, laugh often, love always, be mindful, stay positive, and may the force be with you. And remember, you are the force. And it's a wrap. Thank you.